Hello everybody! Time for some more 8x8 with RC Mojo. This time we'll make a start on the chassis and see how far we get. Right, the manual. And first up, some tools. All the usual suspects: pliers, cutters, scissors, Allen keys, vernier, Plasty-Weld, Loctite and some paint. Since this isn't really a beginner's kit, you'll probably have all the bits to put it together already. Next up, we have some suggested wiring layouts, body parts, more body parts, drivetrain, fixings, plastic bits, body accessories, and finally we're at step 1, putting the wheels together, which is easy enough as they come pre-built. Okay, step 2, the gearbox. Lovely. Now, you might be of the mindset that this makes it easier to build. It's less to do, of course. But is it? Do we really trust that it's been properly lubricated and the mesh properly set? Of course we don't. So, step 2, taking the gearbox apart. Nice place to start. First, the pinion cover comes off. It's just held in with a countersunk screw. Next, the motor screws come out. 2 M3 cap heads. Keep an eye on the washers as they can drop into the gears. The motor comes out with its plastic spacer and a rather long pinion. Bit odd, but the quality looks pretty good. A quick check of the pinion grub screw and it's just fine. Sweet. Now the 4 screws holding the rear section of the gearbox on need to come out. They're all M3 cap heads with captured nylock nuts, making it pretty straightforward to pull apart. Like it. The motor plate can then just slide off, revealing the spur gear. All looks nice and square, and most of all it has a nice layer of grease. Looks like this build might be quite smooth. To reassemble, I'll use the ever useful phrase from the Great Haynes books: refitting is the reverse sequence of removal. Close enough. Just be careful about setting the pinion mesh. You want a little bit of play between the gears. You can just about get an Allen key on the spur and rock it back and forth to check. Step 3, more gearbox. Right. Step 4, fitting the motor. Yep, done that. Step 5, pinion cover. Okay. Step 6, and something new, fitting drive shafts to the gearbox. We need to dig out a pair of long drive shafts. We only need the inner bits for now, and a pair of M3x12 grub screws. There aren't any keyways, so be careful about lining things up. The grubs can be a bit stiff to get into the holes, so start them before you fit the shafts to the gearbox. Run them in until the end of the grub is nearly protruding into the hole. Line it up on the gearbox and do up the grub. Keep going until it's as good as flush with both surfaces. Easy enough, and they are a little bit rattly, and the metal parts in the yoke is actually a bit rusty, but it'll do the job to get us rolling. Step 7, and a big bit, the chassis rails. Looks like they're painted aluminium. Nice finish, all holes cleanly drilled and some tapped for screws. We also need the bag of chassis cross members. It's hard to miss as there's quite a few in there. Right, this requires some careful checking, but all the information is in the diagram. Just carefully match up the picture with the part. Something like this. We also need a load of screws, some M3x10s and M3x8s. Quite a few actually. I think due to the length of this lot we're going to have to move the camera. See how this goes. Starting at the front, the wedge goes on first. If you're struggling to get the screws to start in the holes, grab a posi drive or a Phillips screwdriver and rough up the edges of the hole a bit. It will make the screw much easier to get to bite. I'm going to put all the cross members in, the gearbox and the skid plates, then slot the other chassis rails on and put in the small cross members. We'll leave them loose for the moment and just put the screws into the main cross members, leaving them all slightly loose, 0.5 mm or so under the heads so we can take up any minor inaccuracy, but it all looks pretty good so far. With all the main ones in, the servo mount cross member gets fixed in place. The screw goes in from the top of the rails. Like the others, leave it just slightly loose. Step 8, more screws and mounts. Why this was split from the last part I'm not sure, but the rest of the cross members get fixed in place now. When they're all in, you can nip up all the screws, just so they're snug. As always, don't overdo it or you'll strip the plastic. Next, the link mounts go on. You need a little bit of blue Loctite in the holes so the screws can't vibrate loose. Just pop a drop over the holes and wipe off the excess. Line up the metal parts on the chassis and pop in the screws. Do them up until they just bottom out, then a little extra twist is all you need. While the threads in the chassis rail can take a bit more torque than the plastics, there still isn't any need to go mad. Same goes for the other mounts, 4 triangle shaped ones on the back and a pair of flat plates up front. Simple. Step 9. Missing clip. Dope. Not sure what happened there. So here's some pics while I waffle on. Right, the manual has a bag of O-rings stapled to it for the dampers, but you guessed it, they're already built. And since I can feel there's oil in them, there really isn't much point in taking them apart. Step 10. A pair of suspension links. They're all the usual bits. There's a couple of balls, ball ends and some rods with threaded ends. Won't explain much here as we'll be seeing quite a few more as we progress. Step 11. Now this bit really is a shame that it got lost. Fitting the springs to the mounts, but there we go. 4 or 5 builds and only one major lost clip isn't too bad going. Anyway, the springs attached to the bottom of the mount with a cap head screw, a washer to spread the load over the coils and a nylock at the bottom. So far so good. First, make sure you make 4 left and 4 right assemblies. The odd bit though is they chose to use a flanged plain nut on the top of the spring. Why not another washer and nylock combo? Strangeness. Will work just fine though. Just means you'll need a little smear of Loctite in the threads of the nuts so they don't work loose. All the nuts only want to be bottomed out. Don't go so far you're crushing the springs. Step 12 and 13. Nearly there with the slideshow. We just need to fit the links to the lower mounts. Like before, make sure you make 2 left and 2 right assemblies. And because the balls are plastic, don't over tighten the screws and distort them. They just need to be snug. But scene 1, seen them all, so I'll just build one to show you. Each assembly consists of a Y-type ball end, 2 normal ball ends, 3 balls and 2 47mm rods. Step 14 and back to full motion video. Right, top links. We need to make 4 of these. Best place to start is by putting a straight ball end onto one end of each of the rods, like so. Just like with the chassis braces, a few turns with a screwdriver in the hole can make it so much easier to get the threads to start. If you have a vernier, set it to 32mm as per the instructions. This is the gap we want between the shoulders of the ball ends, so we should end up with all the axles being well aligned. If you've not got a vernier, consider getting one, even if it's a cheap digital one. Or you can just about get away with a ruler, it's just a bit more fiddly. Wrap the rod up with some card and grip it with some pliers. Tighten the ball end until the gap matches up with the vernier. Do the same with the other rod, double check. Trim off any moulding flash, as it can be a bit sharp when we're working on the truck later. And pop in some balls. Just got to make 3 more. Fun times. For now though, I think that will do it. So thanks for watching. If you liked, then by all means hit the like button. It's always much appreciated, as it is when you guys subscribe. It also helps you by letting you know when there's a new video. And speaking of a new video, next time we'll be looking at the axle, suspension, and if there's time, getting it up on its wheels. Should be fun. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.